In this video, the Historic Ordnance series, we're going to look at the French HPD-2 EFP, explosively formed projectile, anti-tank mine. Now, this mine is the second in a series, the HPD series, which is the 1 through the 3. And then on the 2 and the 3, there's different changes to it, so you have like A1, A2. Now, these entered service, the HPD-2, in 1988 and reportedly in French service. By 1999, they reportedly had over 400,000 of these mines in their inventory. These mines are used by France, Belgium, Norway, Switzerland, and Ukraine. And the models that have been seen in Ukraine are this one, the HPD-2A2 version. Now, these mines are 11 inches in length, 4 inches in height, and 7.5 inches in width. These are pretty good sized. I do not have dimensions for the EFP here. Weight is 16 pounds, of which 7.25 pounds is the explosive filler, and the explosive filler inside the EFP in this area here is Comp B. Reportedly, these mines can penetrate up to 150 millimeters of armor. The HPD-1 could only penetrate around 100, and it's thought that HPD-3 can also penetrate at least 150 millimeters of armor. Now, these things have a temp range for storage and use from negative 31 degrees Fahrenheit to a max of 149 degrees Fahrenheit. That could be because of the electronics inside this box here, or it could be because of the explosive compound. I'm not sure which. These mines can be laid in up to 1.5 meters of water. And reportedly, when they're placed in the ground, they can be buried up to a max of 6 inches of dirt over the top of the EFP warhead here. They can also be placed in snow to a maximum depth of around 19 inches of soft snow. Now, these mines do have a magnetic sensor on them to let them know when the target is overhead. And reportedly, the sensitivity on this is supposed to be in a 1 meter above it and around it. So a 2 meter wide sphere over the top of the mine. And the mine, reportedly, according to the manufacturer, the target has to exceed 8 tons in mass of ferrous materials in order to trigger the magnetic sensor to initiate the process to detonate. However, demining sources note that a minimum of 1 ton of steel is needed to activate the magnetic sensor. And that would explain why these in Ukraine have been going off underneath lighter vehicles, such as Jeeps and light trucks, which are far below that, must exceed 8 tons capacity that the French say. Okay, these mines have a 30-day combat life once they are activated, and at the end of the 30-day combat life, the mines self-neutralize. At that point, they can be disarmed, and they have to be sent back to the factory in order to be reset. These mines do have a built-in anti-handling device. The sensor package in here can be set off by motion. So if a deminer or an enemy sapper comes in, picks up the mine, and the it's within that 30 days, the magnetic sensor is still active, the disturbance of the mine will set it off in that deminer's face. And reportedly, magnetic mine detectors, which is your standard coils that you have on all mine detectors, the magnetic signals sent off of the search heads, and it doesn't matter if it's being used by a soldier on the ground or if it's vehicle based along the lines of a Meerkat or a Husky, the magnetic sensors or signals from that search head will also detonate the mine. Now, how these mines operate is the magnetic sensor is basically always going. Once it gets a strong enough signal, that's when it starts the process to go off. Now, depending on the distance of that magnetic signal from the sensor here will determine what happens. If it's really close in, like right over the top, like it would be a tire driving over the top or the track of a tank going over the top, the warhead here will detonate. If the target is farther away, say, it's within that 1 meter, but it's a strong enough signal, this mine figures that the target is over the top of it. It's traveling right between the tracks on the tank. The first thing it'll do, it'll trigger a black powder charge, which will blow the top off of the EFP here to clear away any dirt and debris and vegetation from the top of it. And then 1/10 of a second later, the EFP will fire up into the underside of the target. Now, these mines, as you can see here, the casings of them are plastic, and they come in 2 colors. They come in green and tan. On the green ones, the backside markings on them are in yellow. On the tan ones, as you see here, the backside markings are in black. Now, these mines come 112 mines to a container. Reportedly, they are pre-packaged for use with mechanical mine layers. And if they have to be placed by hand, they just open up that container instead of, loading it in a mine layer and start pulling the mines out individually from the container. These mines are powered by 2 lithium batteries, which are behind here, as you can see in the drawing here. These are 2 3.6 volt lithium batteries, and they are preloaded at the factory. It took me a while to find that information, but I did get the confirmation this morning. So, how are these mines installed? What is the process for it? It's incredibly simple, like we've seen with a lot of the other European mines that have been designed in the late 80s and into the 90s. Everything is already there. You just turn the switch, essentially. So installation instructions are, you're first going to inspect the mine for damage. Make sure there's nothing in there that allows moisture to get inside the electronics. You don't have chemical compounds leaking from around the base plug here, indicating that the batteries are leaking. Everything passes inspection. Transport it to the location where it's going to be in place. These can be surface laid. They can also be buried. As I said, a max of 6 inches of dirt over the top of the mines. So if you're going to place the mine, you're going to dig a hole the same shape and size as the mine. Once the hole is ready, on the end here, you have the switch to arm, but you also have this little itty bitty button right here. To arm it, the first thing you do is you press this button, which is right here. Press that in. Then on the base of the mine, this little bar here, turn it all the way to the right and then press it in. Reportedly, once it's pressed in, that starts the arming procedure. There is a 10-minute delay before the sensor goes active. So you have a max of 10 minutes at that point. Get the mine in the ground, get it covered up, get it camouflaged, move on to the next one. And then you have to stay ahead of that 10 minutes on those mines arming. Now there is a note that if you need to, for whatever reason, you can disarm this if it's within the 10 minutes. But once the sensor goes active, it cannot be disarmed. So we'll get into the disarming procedures because that'll be in the removals. These mines have to be at least 2.5 meters away from the next mine to it. And it doesn't matter what the next mine is. It could be a dumb mine, just a standard pressure anti-tank mine, metal cased, or another HPD series. It has to be at least 2.5 meters away from the next mine. Now for removal on this, do not attempt removal unless it has exceeded 30 days from emplacement. There's a note from Russian sappers in Ukraine. If they come across these mines, they mark out the minefield, and on the signs they put the date of discovery. They come back to take care of that minefield over 30 days from that discovery date, because that puts it outside that 30-day window. The mines should be disarmed. Civilian deminers say to give at least 90 days from discovery before attempting this removal. But for removing these mines, we're past the 30-day mark. First off, you're going to locate where the mine is at. You're going to check around it for any protective mines or booby traps. If none are located, go to the mine. You're going to uncover it. And remember, no metal on your body, just in case with the sensor. There's actually a note on that. No metal on your body. We've seen this with other magnetic fuses. Uncover the side and the base here so that you can get to the button and you can get to the switch here. At that point, you're going to press in on the arming button here, and you're going to rotate the switch all the way to the left. And then in theory, it should pop forward like it is on here. At that point, the mine has been disarmed. Go through at that point, check for booby trap devices underneath or any anti-handling devices. There are no secondary fuse wells on this because of what the mine is, but you do not know if one may have been added, attached to it to prevent its removal. No anti-handling devices are found. You then take it out of the hole and turn it in so that it can be either disposed of or reset. And when they mean reset, they mean the factory has to open us up down here and change out those 2 batteries. And then probably go through and make sure that the electronics are good to go. Now, if we're putting these mines in, the mine is still within that 10-minute delay. If we have to remove that mine and we're within that 10-minute delay, it's going to be the same as removal after the 30 days. Press in on the side button here, rotate that switch all the way to the left to turn off the timer and the electronic circuitry in there. Now, there are models that you can adjust the amount of time it can be in the field. And from the research I did, I came across early this morning. It looks like it's on the HPD-2, possibly the HPD-3, the A1 and A2. On those, you have a multi-position switch here on the bottom, in theory, and then different marks on here will determine how many hours or how many days until self-neutralization. But I can't find the manual specifically giving the instructions on that. So I'm not going to give any information on that because I do not know what position is what, where it is on here, and the length of time. All the instructions I have come across, which it took me a lot of different sources, a lot of different reports looking at it, from EOD to deminers to Russian sappers to the French army itself. That's where I came up with the base procedure on how this is emplaced and removed. And everything says, when arming it, go turn this all the way to the right. That sets it for the 30 days. Pressing in on the button here is supposed to start everything reportedly. And then you got to wait at least 30 days before approaching it and removing it. So these are in the hands of the Ukrainians. Russian sappers do believe that these have ended up in the hands of terrorist organizations in the Middle East. And there's actually a note I came across that they believe Hezbollah actually has purchased a large number of these off the international arms black market that originated out of Ukraine. But there's no official story on that, but that's what it looks like. The Russian sappers are reporting that, and I came across references to that in demining sources also, that they believe Hezbollah has got a hold of a bunch of them out of Ukraine. So this is a mine that probably will make an appearance in other conflicts around the world. And it's one that you should recognize, because of that magnetic sensor inside here is very dangerous. If you come across one of these on the ground, it's sitting on the surface or it's partially exposed, back off, do not approach, notify higher, mark off the area, see if you can locate any others. And that area has to be a no-go zone for at least 30 days before going in to attempt their removals. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and militia movements, always remember, essayons.